The doorman's voice cracked through the phone at 4:45 a.m., pulling me from a light sleep. "Your daughter-in-law is here with movers. She says she's the new owner and they're taking the furniture." I was in my lake cottage, the windows cracked open to the cool night air that carried the faint scent of pine and distant water, the soft lapping against the dock barely audible in the stillness. I didn't sit bolt upright. I didn't gasp or let my heart race wildly. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, deep and steady, the kind that comes when you've been waiting for the final move in a game you already know you've won. My fingers tightened slightly on the phone, but my breathing stayed even. "Let her in, Mark," I told him, my voice steady, almost gentle. "Just make sure she signs the visitor log with her full name and shows ID." There was a pause, his uncertainty hanging in the quiet. "You sure, Mrs. Evelyn?" "Positive. She's about to get the surprise of her life." I hung up and opened the security app on my phone, the screen's glow casting a soft blue light across the quilted bedspread. 4 weeks earlier, after months of growing unease that had started to feel like a constant weight on my chest, I'd had tiny cameras installed in every room of my downtown condo: living room, kitchen, bedrooms, hallways, even the entryway. No one knew. Not my son Nathan, not Sophia, not even my closest friend Margaret. The feed loaded instantly, sharp and clear. There she was, Sophia Grace, my daughter-in-law of barely 5 months, standing in the lobby in designer yoga leggings and an oversized sweater, gesturing sharply at 3 burly men from a moving company. One held a stack of flattened boxes, another checked a clipboard under the harsh fluorescent lights. Sophia's face was flushed with urgency, her cheeks pink against the cool marble floors. I couldn't hear the lobby audio yet, but I read her lips clearly in the high-definition image. "It's all mine now. She signed the papers." My grip tightened on the phone, a familiar ache twisting in my stomach. Not fear, exactly, but the raw sting of betrayal I'd been carrying for months. Mark looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot, but he followed my earlier instructions. He handed her the logbook. She scrawled her name with quick, impatient strokes, flashed her driver's license, and marched toward the elevator with the men in tow, her ponytail swinging like a pendulum. I switched to the hallway feed on the 12th floor. Empty, silent. The polished wood floor gleamed faintly under the sconce lights. Then the elevator dinged, a sharp sound that made me flinch just a little. Sophia stepped first, heels clicking rhythmically against the floor, the movers lumbering behind with their heavy boots thudding softly. She stopped at my door, Unit 1208, and pulled a key from her purse, my old spare key, the one I deliberately left in the kitchen drawer months ago, knowing she'd copied it when she helped organize my paperwork, her fingers lingering a second too long on the drawer pull. The key slid in, turned with a faint scrape. The door opened, and the warm glow of the entry lights spilled into the hall. Lights flicked on inside, one by one. I toggled to the interior cameras, my breath catching as the familiar rooms came into view. My home, the one I'd made mine after David's death. Sophia swept into the living room like she already owned the place, eyes scanning, calculating, her posture straight and triumphant. "Start with the sectional," she ordered, voice crisp through the hidden mics, cutting through the quiet like a knife. "And the antique coffee table, careful with the crystal, those pieces are worth thousands." One mover hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "Ma'am, you sure the owner authorized this?" Sophia spun, irritation flashing in her eyes, her lips pressing into a thin line. "I am the owner now. My mother-in-law transferred everything to me. She's not well, can't manage on her own anymore." The words landed like slaps, each one echoing the doubts she'd planted in me over months, delivered then with syrupy concern, now stripped bare as weapons. I felt a chill despite the cottage's warmth, my free hand clutching the edge of the blanket. Not well, can't manage. Another mover asked, his voice low and uncertain, "Got any paperwork we can see?" Sophia sighed dramatically, the sound exaggerated, fished a folded document from her bag and flashed it, just long enough to seem official, not long enough to read, waving it like a flag of victory. "Here, all legal. Let's move. We need to be out before the building wakes up." Before anyone notices, before someone calls the police. Too late for that. My pulse quickened, but it was anticipation, not panic. A quiet resolve that had been building inside me like a storm gathering strength. Because while she directed traffic in my home, the cameras recorded every second in high definition, audio crystal clear, streaming straight to the cloud, and automatically alerting my attorney, Caroline Pierce, and the local precinct the moment unauthorized entry was detected. I'd set that up 3 weeks ago after the dinner at Nathan's house that left me violently ill for days, my head pounding and vision blurring long into the night. After the whispered phone calls I'd overheard through cracked doors. After Sophia's helpful suggestions started sounding like a countdown, each one chipping away at the life I'd built. Sophia disappeared into my bedroom, the camera following her smooth movements. I switched views, watching as she opened my walk-in closet, ran her fingers slowly over my dresses, the ones I'd chosen carefully over years, each holding a memory. Then she moved to the dresser, her reflection in the mirror showing a small, satisfied smile. She lifted the lid of my late husband David's jewelry chest, the one he gave me on our 30th anniversary, its velvet lining worn soft from years of gentle touch. She selected a pearl necklace, held it to the light where it caught the soft bedroom glow, turning it slowly as if appraising its worth, then smiled wider and slipped it in her pocket. "This too," she murmured, her voice low, almost tender, as if claiming a prize. One mover appeared in the doorway, his silhouette broad against the hall light. "Ma'am, this feels off." Sophia didn't even look up at first, her fingers lingering on another piece before closing the lid with a soft click. "Everything valuable. My mother-in-law doesn't need it where she's going." Where she's going? The words hung heavy, painting a picture of some sterile room stripped of everything I loved, as if I were already packed off to some facility, already gone, my life reduced to boxes and sales. She returned to the living room, phone pressed to her ear, pacing slowly in front of my bookshelf, where photos of Nathan as a boy still smiled out from dusty frames. "I'm in," she said quietly, her tone shifting to something conspiratorial. "Yes, with the key you helped me copy. No sign of her. She's at the lake like clockwork." Pause, her free hand twisting a ring on her finger. "The herbal drops didn't work as fast as we hoped. She stopped accepting tea after that last episode. But this is better. Once we clear out the valuables, Nathan will sign whatever I put in front of him. He's practically begging to help her now." Another pause. A low laugh that made my skin crawl, cold and sharp. Of course he feels guilty, that's the point. And with the furniture gone, the condo will look abandoned, perfect for a quick sale. Appraiser said $325,000 minimum, add the lake cottage later, we're set. She ended the call, surveyed the room with triumphant satisfaction, her shoulders relaxing as if the weight of pretense had finally lifted. Tears stung my eyes, hot and unexpected, blurring the screen for a moment. I blinked them away, but they weren't just sadness. They were fury, raw and burning, mixed with a deep grief for the son I thought I knew. Because it wasn't about furniture or money, it was about being erased, slowly, deliberately by the woman my son married, piece by careful piece, until there was nothing left of me but a shadow she could step over. I'm Evelyn Harper, 62 years old, widowed for 14 years. I raised Nathan alone after David's sudden stroke, holding his hand in that sterile hospital room as machines beeped their final rhythm. I worked as a senior accountant for 35 years, saved diligently through overtime and careful choices, bought the downtown condo outright with my own earnings, purchased the lake cottage as a quiet retreat where the water's gentle rhythm could soothe the ache of empty evenings. I'm healthy, active, independent, walking those 4 miles each morning as the sun rose pink over the paths, feeling the crisp air fill my lungs. Or I was, until Sophia decided I was an obstacle, something to be diminished, removed. It started innocently enough 6 months before the wedding. Nathan called one Tuesday evening, voice bubbling with excitement I hadn't heard since he was a boy racing home with a good report card. "Mom, I met someone. Her name's Sophia. She's amazing." They'd been dating 4 months. 4 months, and he'd never mentioned her. A small ache bloomed in my chest. sharp and unexpected, like a reminder of how quickly time pulls children away. But I pushed it down, forcing warmth into my voice. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Bring her to dinner Sunday?" Sunday came, the air warm with early spring promise. I arrived at Nathan's apartment with a bottle of good Cabernet cradled carefully in my arms and homemade apple pie, his favorite since childhood, the scent of cinnamon still lingering on my hands. Margaret came too. She's been my rock since David died, her steady presence a comfort through the darkest nights. We met at a grief support group, bonded over coffee and dark humor that made the pain bearable, and have been inseparable ever since, sharing laughs over manicures or quiet walks where we could just be. Sophia opened the door like she'd been waiting her whole life to greet me, the afternoon light catching her blonde hair in perfect waves. 34, stunning, flawless skin glowing, designer dress hugging her figure, probably costing more than my monthly mortgage used to be. "Evelyn, Nathan talks about you constantly." She pulled me into a hug that lasted 2 seconds too long, her perfume overpowering, sweet and cloying, clinging to my clothes long after. After dessert, she insisted on herbal tea, the steam rising in fragrant curls from delicate cups. "My special blend, chamomile, valerian, a few secret ingredients, great for relaxation." The scent was oddly bitter beneath the sweetness, lingering in the air like a warning. I drank half out of courtesy, the warmth spreading uncomfortably. Margaret barely touched hers, her glance meeting mine across the table. An hour later, driving home, the world tilted sharply, streets blurring under streetlights. Nausea hit hard, waves rolling through me. Margaret took my keys without asking, her hand steady on my arm. "That woman sets off every alarm bell," she said in the car, the engine's hum the only sound for a moment. And that tea tasted wrong. I wanted to defend Sophia, wanted to believe the best for Nathan's sake, to silence that quiet voice whispering doubt. But the unease lingered, settling deep in my bones like the chill of evening fog. The next months blurred into a campaign of subtle erosion, each encounter leaving me a little more unsteady. Surprise visits with lattes and concern, her knock echoing through my quiet condo. "You look tired, Evelyn. Are you sleeping?" Texts checking if I'd eaten, if I needed groceries delivered, popping up on my phone like gentle reminders that felt increasingly like chains. Always framed as kindness, her words soft but persistent. Nathan echoed her, his voice over the phone carrying the same notes. "Mom, Sophia worries you're isolated. Maybe think about a smaller place?" I was 62, not 90. I walked 4 miles every morning, feeling the paths crunch under my sneakers, managed my own investments with spreadsheets I still updated meticulously. Traveled to Italy the year before with Margaret, laughing over gelato in sun-drenched piazzas. Yet suddenly I was fragile, the word unspoken but heavy in their glances, making me question my reflection in the mirror. Were those lines deeper? Was my step slower? Then came the wedding, small, tasteful, expensive, the venue blooming with white flowers that filled the air with their heady scent. I contributed $8,000 toward it because Nathan looked so happy, his eyes shining when he thanked me with a hug. Sophia's gown cost $6,500. I saw the invoice when she left her planner open on the table, the numbers staring up like an accusation. During the reception, laughter and music swirling around me, I stepped into the ladies' room for lipstick, the cool tile under my heels a brief respite, and overheard voices through the stall wall, low and conspiratorial. "It's perfect," Sophia whispered, excitement threading her tone. "Nathan's completely under my thumb, and the old lady's loaded. Condo worth over $300,000, lake cottage, healthy retirement accounts, no other heirs. A little patience and it's all ours." The other voice, her friend, laughed softly. "How?" "Make her doubt herself. Keep her slightly off balance. I've got the perfect herbal supplement. Builds up slowly, mimics early dementia symptoms. By the time anyone notices, she'll beg us to handle everything." I gripped the sink until my knuckles went white, the porcelain cold under my palms, my breath shallow as the words sank in like stones. It wasn't paranoia, it was calculated, cold and precise. That night at the lake cottage, my sanctuary, where the water's rhythm had soothed so many lonely evenings, I called Caroline Pierce, the phone heavy in my trembling hand. She'd handled David's estate, knew my finances inside out, her calm voice a lifeline. I told her everything, the overheard conversation echoing in my mind, the dizziness after tea that left me curled on the bathroom floor, the pressure to transfer assets that felt like hands closing around my throat. "Protect yourself, Evelyn," she said firmly, "and get proof." Proof became cameras, hidden in everyday objects, their tiny lenses watching silently. Proof became locking down accounts late at night, fingers flying over the keyboard. Proof became refusing every helpful document Sophia slid across tables with that practiced smile. 2 months after the wedding, Sophia invited me to Sunday brunch, just us girls, the sun streaming through Nathan's windows onto the brunch spread. Nathan was away on business. She served mimosas that fizzed cheerfully, eggs Benedict with hollandaise gleaming, and that same herbal tea, its steam carrying that familiar bitter edge. "For digestion," she smiled, watching as I lifted the cup. I poured mine into a potted plant when she turned to refill her own, the liquid soaking silently into the soil. Conversation drifted inevitably to my finances, her voice light but probing. "Nathan and I worry about you managing everything alone. Taxes, maintenance, investments, it's a lot." She produced papers from a neat folder, sliding them toward me with manicured fingers. "This durable power of attorney would let Nathan handle bills if you ever need. Totally reversible." I scanned it under the table's soft light, my stomach tightening. Not reversible, irrevocable, gave Nathan, and by extension Sophia, complete control. "I'll have Caroline review it," I said lightly, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Sophia's smile tightened, a flicker of frustration crossing her features before the mask slipped back. "Of course, but really, Evelyn, it's just to make life easier. At your age, things can slip." At your age, the phrase lingered like the tea's aftertaste. I left without signing, the door clicking shut behind me, a small victory. That night, Nathan called, voice strained over the line. "Mom, why won't you let us help? Sophia says you don't trust me." Guilt tripped like clockwork, his words pulling at old heartstrings. The campaign escalated, each day bringing new pressure. Unannounced visits to check on me, her knock sharp against my door, comments about imagined memory lapses, delivered with wide-eyed concern. "Remember you forgot our lunch last week?" I hadn't, the date clear in my calendar. Sophia started bringing prepackaged meals, healthier than cooking alone, she'd say, unpacking them with flourish. I stopped eating anything she touched, the sight of those containers turning my stomach. One afternoon, Margaret dropped by unannounced, her key turning in the lock just as Sophia stood in my kitchen measuring my medications, bottles lined up like soldiers. "Just organizing," Sophia said smoothly, closing a cabinet with a soft thud. Margaret didn't buy it, her eyes narrowing. After she left, Margaret exploded in my living room, voice low but fierce. "She's cataloging your life like inventory. Wake up, Evelyn." I was awake, the realization settling heavy but clear. I just needed her to hang herself, to make the move that would expose everything. The first real break-in came 3 weeks before the moving truck morning. My phone buzzed while I grocery shopped, the fluorescent lights harsh overhead. Motion detected. Feed showed Sophia letting herself in with the copied key, moving with purpose through rooms bathed in afternoon sun. She spent 45 minutes photographing documents under my desk lamp, rifling drawers with quick efficiency, pocketing a sapphire brooch David gave me for our 25th anniversary, its cool weight now in her hand instead of mine. I forwarded everything to Caroline, my hands steady despite the rage simmering beneath. Nathan's response when confronted later, his voice tight over dinner. "Mom, you're spying on family? You need help." Help. Always help. The word twisted now. The final push came at a family intervention Sophia orchestrated, the air thick with tension. She invited me to dinner, said Nathan had something important to discuss, her voice bright on the phone. When I arrived, her mother, brother, and 2 cousins filled the dining room, witnesses, their eyes appraising as I took my seat. After dessert, the plates cleared with forced casualness, Sophia produced thicker papers, sliding them across the tablecloth. "We're worried about your safety, Evelyn. The forgetfulness, the confusion after meals, the paranoia about cameras. We've consulted an elder care attorney. This is a guardianship petition. Sign voluntarily and you stay in your home with our oversight. Refuse and we seek court appointment. We have statements from everyone here confirming your decline." Statements. Lies dressed as concern, delivered with pitying glances around the table. I stood slowly, chair scraping back, my voice calm despite the storm inside. "I'm not signing anything, and if you pursue this, my attorney has evidence of fraud, theft, and attempted poisoning." Sophia laughed, actually laughed, the sound brittle in the quiet room. "Poisoning? Evelyn, you're delusional." Nathan looked stricken but silent, his fork still in hand. I walked out, the night air cool on my heated skin. That night I moved more funds to new accounts, the clicks of the keyboard echoing in the empty condo, updated my will to leave everything to women's charities if Nathan remained married to Sophia, and waited, the silence both terrifying and empowering. Which brings us back to 4:45 a.m., Sophia directing movers in my condo, confessing on camera to poisoning attempts, theft, fraud, her voice echoing through the speakers as if she were in the room with me. The police arrived 8 minutes after Caroline's call, sirens wailing faintly in the distance feed. I watched live as officers cuffed her mid-sentence, her face twisting in shock under the bright lights. "This is my property," she shrieked, struggling against the metal. "Ma'am, the owner filed a trespass complaint. Step away from the furniture." The movers scattered, tools clattering. Sophia fought, mascara streaking down her cheeks in black rivers. Neighbors filmed on phones from cracked doors. By sunrise, she was in custody, the condo quiet once more. The fallout was swift, the days blurring into statements and evidence reviews. Charges: breaking and entering, attempted theft, forgery, attempted aggravated assault, the sedatives. Bail denied. She was deemed a flight risk and danger, her composure cracking in the courtroom. Nathan showed up at the lake cottage 2 days later, eyes hollow, the porch light casting shadows on his tired face. "Mom, I didn't know about the poison, I swear. She said you were sick, that the guardianship was compassionate. But you believed her over me, every time." My voice was quiet, but the pain cut deep. He had no defense, standing there with slumped shoulders. The trial lasted 10 days, the courtroom air thick with tension. Video evidence was devastating, Sophia's own words condemning her, played back in cold clarity. Lab-confirmed benzodiazepines in my discarded tea blends and sugar bowl, the report stark on the screen. My cognitive evaluation, perfect score, a relief that brought unexpected tears. Guilty on all counts, 8 years. Nathan filed for divorce the same week, papers signed with shaking hands. After sentencing, reporters asked for a statement outside, cameras flashing in the bright day. I looked straight into them, wind tugging at my hair. "Trust yourself. Age doesn't make you lesser. Family doesn't give anyone the right to steal your life. Fight back. You're worth it." Healing wasn't instant, the quiet nights at the cottage filled with reflection. I sold the condo, too many ghosts lingering in the corners, and bought a bright loft near the lake with floor-to-ceiling windows that let in golden light. Margaret and I travel. Greece last spring, the sea air salty and free, Morocco next fall already planned. I mentor women at the shelter on financial independence, their stories echoing mine in ways that heal. Nathan and I meet monthly for coffee, cautious, honest conversations over steaming mugs, words chosen carefully. Trust rebuilds slowly, if at all, but there's hope in the small steps. Some nights I sit on my deck watching water ripple under moonlight, the same view that greeted me that fateful morning, the cool breeze carrying peace. I raise a glass of wine, poured by my own hand, and whisper the truth I finally believe. I protected myself, and that choice saved me. If this story moved you, if you've ever felt dismissed or doubted, please share your experience in the comments. You're not alone. And if you want to hear more stories of women finding their strength, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you here for the next one.